Selamat siang. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih banyak sudah hadir pada sore ini Bapak dan Ibu pada Queensland Hour Webinar Series yang diadakan oleh Trade Investment Queensland atau TIQ Indonesia. Nama saya adalah Irma Irsyad, saya Principal Business Development Manager dari Trade Investment Queensland atau kami biasa disingkat dengan TIQ. TIQ Indonesia membantu untuk mempromosikan kapabilitas Queensland di Indonesia dan juga untuk memfasilitasi hubungan antara Queensland dan Indonesia, terutama di bidang perdagangan dan investasi. Kami ada di Indonesia. Mungkin Bapak dan Ibu bertanya apa tujuan kami mengadakan Queensland Hour series ini. Ini adalah supaya para kolega-kolega kami di Indonesia dapat tetap mendapatkan informasi terbaru dari Queensland, terutama di bidang pendidikan dan pelatihan. Oleh karena itu akan ada pembicara yang berbeda pada setiap sesinya untuk beberapa bulan ke depan. Nama pembicara kita pada sore ini adalah Bapak Gordon Scott. Beliau adalah Founding Director dari Successful Graduate dan Successful Graduate ada di Queensland, Australia. Bapak Gordon akan berbicara mengenai supporting Indonesian students and employability skills pada sore ini. Speaker Bapak dan Ibu telah kami mute, tapi apabila ada pertanyaan, bisa Bapak dan Ibu ketikkan di Q&A box di bawah screen Bapak dan Ibu dan nanti akan dijawab oleh Bapak Gordon. Sesi ini akan kami rekam untuk tujuan pembelajaran. Apabila ada peserta yang sudah mendaftar tapi tidak dapat hadir, mereka dapat melihat rekamannya yang akan kami upload pada channel YouTube TIQ. Karena waktu ini bertepatan dengan sesi ngeteh atau ngopi biasanya, silakan kalau Bapak Ibu mau siapkan dulu sebelum Bapak Gordon mulai presentasi supaya lebih semangat dan tidak ngantuk dalam menyimak informasi yang akan disampaikan oleh Bapak Gordon. Okay, I'm turning to our speaker now, to you, Gordon. Thank you so much for agreeing to be our speaker today. This is our third session of TIQ Indonesia's Queensland Hour webinar series. If I could please get you to turn your camera on so we all could see you. Maybe a quick hi so participants here today could see you.
Thanks, Irma. I think hopefully Tristan has got it up and running. So can you see me now? Okay.
All right. Yes, we can see you. Hi. Thank you so much. All right. So for your information, I would like to thank our participants today. These are people mostly in universities, polytechnic schools. These people are in charge in career centers, student recruitments, those supervisors for work experience or internship placements, in alumni functions, and also counselors. And I would also like to thank those people attending today who are in companies who have their own online learning. And of course, our friends from the education agents, as well as our contacts from the Indonesian ministries who are attending today.
Fantastic.
And they are as excited to listen to the information that you will be sharing today and to learn on what possible online employability training program that might be available for their students and their graduates, because this is very important to get their students ready for their future career and also to getting them prepared with relevant skills. So without further ado, I'll hand this session over to you, Gordon.
Terima kasih Ibu Irma, teman saya. Bapak dan Ibu-Ibu, selamat siang. Walaupun saya bisa berbicara dalam bahasa Indonesia, saya belum lancar, jadi akan saya speak in English. And I hope that you understood what I just said. Look, I am really, really excited to be able to talk to you today. Hasn't the world changed in the last 12 months? I have been to Indonesia several times and have met with some of you on campus and in your offices face to face, and nothing can beat that. But I'm just so thrilled to have such a strong audience today in this webinar. I would like to speak through a number of points today which relate to the global demand for improving student employability outcome within the education sector. And I will be drawing reference to a number of our client websites and institutions in different markets. And I guess principally what I'm most interested in doing is to keep you awake, because I know that PowerPoint slides can sometimes be boring. And so I do hope that we're able to answer some of the questions that many people have kindly proposed as part of their registration today. We will have, as Irma has said, the opportunity to hopefully answer some questions at the end. So let's get into it. Successful Graduate is a company, and it's a company which focuses upon providing an online scalable opportunity for the education sector to be able to support many of the basic skills that students, when they graduate, sometimes do not have, that relate to the job application process. At its heart, that's what we do. We work with education providers to deliver employability skills training at scale. And two things have happened in the last year which have really led to our business growing substantially. The first is the global phenomenon of education institutions having to move online because of the COVID pandemic. And that has led to, I suppose, a wider acceptance of the role that online education can play. The other thing that's happened is the increasing demand for employability outcome as a part of a student's education. 5 years ago, when I worked in the education sector, I don't recall ever hearing the word employability, but now it's a word that seems to be commonplace. So let's jump into our presentation. This is just a brief overview of some of the organisations in Australia, Malaysia and the Pacific Islands that we have been working with and contracted to. And I'll come back and provide a deeper insight into some of these contracts and what we've delivered. First up, let's address a question which came about as part of the registration process. Bapak Wiwi Winarda, who is an accounting partner for a firm, I think in Jakarta, asked, are there any possibilities to make a cooperation or business partnership with Successful Graduate? Bapak, the answer is yes. That's why I'm here. I'm very, very interested in determining how our products and our platforms can be absorbed and utilized in a great way in the Indonesian market. And again, I'll provide a brief overview of how we are doing that with a partner in Indonesia at the moment. I first came to Indonesia together with one of my clients with the support of Trade and Investment Queensland in 2017. I say first came to Indonesia, I've been many times, but with this business and looking at how Successful Graduate may be in a position to support education providers and government agencies in Indonesia. So that was a launch in Jakarta, and we were very fortunate to have the Australian Embassy to help us to launch our business there. Our courses have been developed really without any rocket science. All we've done is we've spoken to and worked with professional careers counsellors from universities and from the Career Development Association of Australia, people who work with students every day to support their employability. And we've said, look, if you had a series of one-to-one meetings directly with a student, what knowledge would you share with them and what information would you provide to them? And all we've done is we've worked with those careers counsellors to package this material into online training to cover the basics that relate to the job application process, the internship application process, high school graduate preparation, etc. And what we do is we deliver this material in an online training environment, client by client, on co-branded websites. So we will build a website that trains students according to the brand and the institution that we partner with. Our business model then really is to focus on supporting the education provider to improve the employability skills of their students at scale. Our vision is to bridge the gap between studying and employment. And so I suppose I'd like to just run you through some of the work we're doing at the moment. We are working with, local government, state government, and we're now in conversation with the Australian government about supporting what has been a very high growth sector here in Australia, and that is the international education market, attracting international students to come and study here. And we're really excited about the opportunity to potentially work with our national government to deliver a platform for them, which will attract international students, hopefully, back into Australia once markets open again. Our training programs really do cover a lot more ground today than they did when we launched the business 6 years ago. And so, look, we help to improve the self-awareness of a student before we work with them through either the job application process, the internship application process. We introduce the concept of networking to a student. We help them to understand how to find work through that network rather than necessarily through an advertised position. But for advertised positions, we teach them the process of applying for work. I'm really curious and interested about how that process, as we've adapted it to the Australian market and to the Fijian market and to the Malaysian market, and how that process is being used in countries like the United Kingdom, how can that process be adapted to suit the Indonesian market? And so this is something that I've been talking to Trade and Investment Queensland and Ibu Irma and the office in Jakarta about for a number of years. We teach job interview skills, particularly in a COVID environment, how to prepare a student for online interviews. We teach students how to actually start and keep work and to reach any census dates that might be in place related to probation or having a more fundamental working contract in place once they've commenced work. We also have new programs that relate to employer surveys that have been held in different markets by entities such as International Student Barometer or Quattrelli-Simmons, QS, by our own federal government in Australia, asking graduate employers what are the soft skills that could be improved before a student actually applies for work. And so we've found it really important to be able to deliver some soft skills training platforms as well. More about that in a minute. Finally, we've started to expand our base. And so I know there are quite a number of people who are working in the SMR and SMK environment. We have developed a high school preparation program, which again, I'll talk in more detail about in a minute, but ostensibly that is a program that is about introducing careers interests, understanding a student's capacities and their interests, creating a long list of the type of industries they could join, researching whether further education is required, and then finally developing a short list of what a student might do after high school. So we're trying to fill that void and that gap around the entire student life cycle for enhancing employability for these students. I'd like to just then quickly look at some of these courses as they've been, I guess, identified through some of the questions that you have been asking as an audience over the last few weeks in the lead up to this presentation. So in fact, I'm going to be jumping around some of the order that we might generally present to a potential customer, but I'd like to talk about internships and work placement. One of our programs is the Successful Intern course, which has been designed to assist a student who may have a work placement or an internship or work integrated learning embedded into their program, or may simply see the benefit in trying to undertake an internship as part of their studies and to improve their own employability. Heaps of examples of how we've used it, including with our own city government here in the capital city of Queensland, Brisbane. There is an internship program underway there. Now, we had a question from the Ministry of Education and Culture in the lead up to this webinar, the Head of Administration Directorate for SMK, Alfa Leda Razik. So the question was, how can vocational students get an internship in Australia? Well, as it happens, Successful Graduate has a partnership with Australian Internships, which is one of many providers of internships for students who may be overseas and are seeking to undertake an internship in Australia. So, but there is indeed a commercial option available for students, be they vocational students, be they university students who have an interest in undertaking an internship in Australia. And by commercial, I mean, of course, there is a fee involved in this, and I believe that our partner, Australian Internships, would be very happy to talk to you about that. For our part, Australian Internships promotes our Successful Graduate course on their website, our Successful Intern course as well on their website, purely to be able to provide the student with an enhanced layer of competitiveness when it comes to improving their chances of securing that internship. Because ultimately, there is still a competitive process in applying for an internship. So I hope that goes some way, sir, to answering your question. I've spoken briefly about the high school graduate course. We have a partnership with the largest vocational training provider in Queensland, which is TAFE Queensland, whereby we are delivering a series of courses to their students, including this high school graduate program. And we can talk perhaps in more detail about what this program does shortly. But I suppose this is a good opportunity to describe and to profile for you our business approach, which is to work with a customer to create this co-branded website that delivers training courses to their students. And so in the case of TAFE Queensland, we've been delighted to work not only with their international students, but also many different cohorts of domestic students up and down and across the state of Queensland. Now, there was another question, particularly focused upon career and college readiness. And I thought this was a good juncture to be able to answer this question by Theo Wijaya from BPK Penabur. And that was, how do we measure students' career and college readiness? I'll make this slide a bit bigger. We've actually been working with the National Career Development Association in the United States of America, and with their permission, have applied this CASVE cycle. It's a cognitive approach to career development and services. Now, I mentioned earlier for our high school graduate program that we've introduced a rubric that helps students to make a decision. And so quite simply, we've developed a career decision-making model and a spreadsheet that students use. And so we start with the premise that they know they need to make some sort of a choice, but it's understandably difficult when you're 15, 16 or 17 years old to make a firm choice about what you'll be doing for the rest of your life. And so we start with an understanding of self. We help the students to develop a long list of career options. We run them through a process of understanding they need to make some decisions now about taking that long list of career options and reducing that to a short list. So we help them through a rubric of both expanding and narrowing their career options through a series of research portals. In the Australian market, there are some fantastic Australian government sites, websites, which help students to do this. And so, of course, we link into some of those and help a student to create an account with those. Then comes a process of prioritizing options. Now, this process is not about locking a student into 1, 2, or 3 career directions. It's simply about helping them to start to make some choices and decisions, and then maybe implementing their first choice, understanding whether further study may be required for them to enter into a career related to a particular industry, knowing that they've made some good choices, and then determining whether any further choices are necessary. So that's the guide to good decision making. In this particular instance, we've contracted a careers counsellor who is a high school professional careers counsellor who works in the high school system, and she has actually developed that successful high school course for us. So I hope that answers your question. But now, the Successful Graduate course is our principal course. It was our first course. It was designed initially for vocational students or higher education university students to work through in order to improve their knowledge about and their skills related to the job application cycle. And look, I'm very happy to jump in and to show you some of the detail related to this course, but honestly, there's a lot there, and we could spend 2 hours just talking about that. Suffice to say that this course has been utilised by a variety of different customers in different ways. And I'll just stick with our example of TAFE Queensland. With TAFE Queensland, we've developed 2 versions of this course. We've renamed it according to the way courses are delivered at TAFE, and it's called the Job Readiness Program. This is the Successful Graduate course. Version 1 is for domestic students, and version 2 is for international students. Now, the program itself is 10 modules long. It starts with who are you? It goes all the way through the job application process life cycle, and it finishes with okay, so let's get you ready for your first days and weeks at work and help you to understand how you can keep that job now that you've worked all the way through the process. I would love to go into further detail about that with you, but we don't have time. Suffice to say, this is working, and it's had, in the case of TAFE Queensland, we've surveyed some of their students on that particular course. A survey of over 300 students resulted in a 98% benefit ratio, which is extraordinary. And so, we're just absolutely delighted that it's working. We've started to have a look at the career outcomes of graduated students. And I would love to play a video for you. Why don't we do that? I hope my internet connection is good. This is a graduated international student who has found work and is working in the engineering field now. I won't play the whole thing, but just a great example of how this is real and it's demonstrating outcomes.
I moved to Brisbane 3 years ago now. I'm currently studying an associate degree in civil engineering at TAFE Queensland. The TAFE Job Readiness program is basically an online program that, for me, it sort of takes you on a journey from studying into finding a job. It helps you, gives you the do's and don'ts and the tricks and tips. But with the program, it really helps you to focus on what's important and what's to include and how to really impress the employer who's doing your documents. And also, it doesn't stop there. It takes you to the interview. It helps you how to get ready for the interview. It helps you to attend your interview also. And what I really liked also about the program, it doesn't just stop at the interview. It goes to helping you on your first day at work. And one of the aspects that I really enjoyed on the program is the one where it talks about how to negotiate your pay. It just builds your...
Okay, so I'll stop there. Okay, so point number one, it works. Point number two, we were absolutely delighted last year to have been awarded as the global #2 for the Pioneer Award for Employability International Impact. And this sort of recognition is, of course, very helpful, but it's been quite overwhelming because this was just an idea for us 6 years ago. And now we're seeing these sorts of results impacting student cohorts in a number of markets, not just in Australia. So I really just want to thank all of the customers that we've had today. And I say that because I know some of them are actually participants on this webinar right now, but you've helped us to get where we are. Now we want to be able to apply our knowledge and our rubrics and our information to support students in other markets, including Indonesia. A new one? Yes. Hi, Irma.
Sorry to interrupt you. Would you like to comment on this? One of the participants who is attending today said that most of the graduated high school students here in Indonesia, we call them SMR, not really interested in online studying platform for them to continue their studying afterward, that rather choosing university instead of college or diploma like TAFE that you have mentioned earlier.
And
Maybe
so
a quick comment on that.
And so the comment was that they're not so keen on online study, but they want to move to university or polytechnic. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Oh, no. Sorry, they're rather choosing university instead of college or diploma, like TAFE that you mentioned earlier.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. So that example that I gave is how we've been able to apply the high school graduate course to support students who may be interested in vocational study. But the course actually goes into a lot of detail about options for further study in the higher education market as well. Perhaps I could present another example of how it's being used. In fact, we are signing a contract this week with a university in another state in Australia who is using that course simply to present their brand to students in the high school system. So in the hope, I suppose, that students will end up choosing to study with them. But at the end of the day, it's the same course. It's the same high school graduate course. We don't try and funnel students in one direction or the other. We try and help students to follow a path that's based upon their interests. Full stop, that's it. So I hope that in a way I've answered the question there, Irma. And for many students, that path involves going to university, which is a valid proportion of that training course as well. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. So the part-time work course, I think we were just talking prior to this meeting about the rise of Gojek in Indonesia and here in Australia, it's Uber Eats, Deliveroo, there are a variety of them. There is no doubt that for many students who may be undertaking vocational studies or higher education studies, there is a need for them to be working in some capacity to earn some money while they're undertaking their studies. And so this course has been designed, it's a shorter course, it's designed to help a student to apply for a job, to find work, and to balance the load upon them, which comes with having work responsibilities, having family responsibilities, and having study responsibilities. So that's the focus of that particular program. The next was a question from Ibu Nurdini Tilova, who is a lecturer at Universitas Pemalang. How do we solve the students' self-limiting beliefs? Thank you, Ibu, for your question. Such an important question, a global question, a global issue, and one which we've taken very seriously as a part of developing our programs. In part, the answer lies in trying to be quite realistic with students about the work that is involved in finding a job. I often say to students, I sometimes have the pleasure of providing some lectures on campus at universities around Australia about this. And I often talk about the 80-20 rule. 20%, maybe not even so many now because of the pandemic, but 20% of graduates from any one class will be the ones that are successful in being hired into graduate programs. And those students will typically have good connections, or they will have already demonstrated skills, soft skills that the employer is looking for. They will have participated in internship programs as part of their institution. And so they're an easy hire for the organisation that wants to take them on. But what about the 80% of students who actually are going to struggle to find work? And the statistics in Australia, I'm sure, are no different to how they are anywhere else in the world, including Indonesia. For some students, it can take 3 years before they'll find work that is related to the industry that they've studied in, and in particular, full-time work. And so how do we help to improve those students? Well, I believe the answer is to help them with an understanding of the core issues of confidence and resilience. We believe that each student needs to develop these as soft skills. And in fact, we've embedded the soft skills of confidence and resilience into our training programs, regardless of which course it is that the student is undertaking. So yeah, self-limiting beliefs we can delve into in a variety of different ways, but I feel that we can help the majority of students by improving their understanding about and their practice of confidence and resilience, learning from failure as part of this job application process. We're starting to develop other micro courses related to soft skills as well. And this one has come about through an engagement with a state government program here in Australia. We've ended up focusing upon the number one concern that employers have in Australia about graduating students, and that is the lack of critical thinking and problem-solving skills. And again, I don't for 1 minute profess to say that if they do an online training course, suddenly they'll be critical thinkers. Quite the opposite. In fact, what we've done is we've developed a rubric to help a student to change the way they think. We introduced the concept of logic and argument and understanding how to apply that to a working role. But it's up to the student to practice what we've preached, if you like, and put into this online training course. Again, outstanding results with this one. And this year we'll be developing further soft skills training courses. Look, we've got courses that are designed to help students to improve other elements of their lives before they enter the working world, including their financial fitness. And we've partnered with a registered training organisation in Australia that does this for a living, and we're delivering their product online. For those of you, I know not many of you will be in the international student market yourselves, although having said that, there are a number of education agents that have registered today. Yes, we have just recently prepared a pre-departure course for international students. This course is designed ostensibly to support students to prepare to study in Australia, but there's no reason why we can't rewrite the material to apply it to another market. The idea is that we want to be able to support governments and education providers with attracting students to come back from overseas after the pandemic, when there is a light at the end of the tunnel and when people can start traveling again and obtaining student visas again. And so this course is actually a very detailed course which helps a student while they may still be stuck, for want of a better word, overseas before they can travel, to understand what to expect when they arrive, to understand how to change their mindset to become independent and to become a student who is living in another country. So that was actually a lot of fun and is part of what we're talking to some new customers about with borders opening, hopefully, towards the end of this year. Some client examples. I'm keeping an eye on my time. I think we have another 10 minutes or so for me to talk, Irma, so hopefully we're going okay. I've already spoken about the job readiness program with TAFE Queensland, and I probably won't spend too much more time talking about that again, but there was a great question that one of you asked, Miss Anissa Diwi Julia Stuti, who is a careers counsellor from the Institute Teknologi Kalimantan. The question was, how do we increase students' enthusiasm to start planning a career from the first year of study? What a great question. And it actually goes to the heart of how our business has changed. We built it thinking that we would be delivering employability skills training to people just before they were to graduate. But the market has shifted enormously in that time. So the name successful graduate, I guess, still makes sense, but it's probably more about successful first-year student. And so we are seeing our customers wanting to apply our training to students as early as possible into the student life cycle. Now, your question was, how do we increase their enthusiasm? It's like an old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And so I think that there are a number of ways that we can be improving student enthusiasm for career planning. One might be to scare them into reality about the 80-20 rule, how difficult it may well be for them to find work, and what are the steps that they should be taking while they have the luxury of being on campus to improve their employability skills. Another might be to gently guide them to make that decision themselves by exposing them to work opportunities while they're studying. And so, I mean, this is one of the core reasons why internships, work placement, work trials, industrial placements are supported by education institutions. It's designed not only to help the student improve their employability skills, but I think it's also to help them to understand that there's work that they need to do on career planning and developing enthusiasm about finding work. A final suggestion would be that we work with an institution to embed our course material into the curriculum. And I can't remember who it was, but it was a rector of a university who asked this question. So here's another way of addressing it. I think it's possible that we can make the delivery of employability skills mandatory by adopting and absorbing our material into the curriculum for courses on campus. I'd love to see some comments on that. But in any case, this is, I guess, part of how we've been working with customers such as TAFE Queensland. I'll move on to the next slide. We had a question around, this is from Ibu Winda Puspita, Student Recruitment Manager at IAE. How to acquire more personal skills while studying with a very hectic schedule. I think that's a perfect segue from my most previous recommendation, which is that we make this training mandatory. Indeed, I've had discussions with many academics who say, oh my goodness, now not only have we got a packed curriculum and we've got to teach our students the hard skills related to their profession, now you're saying we've got to teach them how to apply for a job as well. There just isn't enough time. You know, that's up to the student. And I think that's the age-old argument, which is changing. But, and I apologize to academics in the audience, but by and large, I have been receiving negative responses from academics and positive responses from marketing people who are responsible for attracting students into the system. The hard fact of the matter is the education industry is becoming more competitive. And if we want to attract students to come and study at our institution, more and more increasingly, we need to be able to focus upon how we deliver more employable students. I make no apologies for the fact that we've developed a solution that is scalable, that is online, and is designed to assist institutions, to assist academics, to assist careers counsellors, with improving the employability of students. So my answer, Bu, is by delivering it in a self-paced manner online, when a student can have 1, 2, or 3 years, perhaps, to complete our coursework, but in their own time, they have the opportunity to work upon themselves. And our course will not work if a student doesn't properly undertake our coursework and prepare those critical building blocks that they will need based upon who they are in order to help them with their job applications. It's that simple. I don't think there's any silver bullet which can achieve this. Okay. Now,
Gordon,
example. Yes.
Before you start, before you start the next one, there's one question from the participants, if you could quickly answer this. This person is interested to apply for a job readiness program. So how to apply and who can apply for this program?
Okay, well, if you just go to the website successfulgraduate.com, and you'll see on that website that there are all of the courses I've been talking about are listed under training programs. And so the job readiness program is the Successful Graduate course. Simply click on that and you can register and enroll to undertake that course online at that website. That is our B2C website. That is the site which we are using to sell our product direct to student. But as I mentioned earlier, our business model, our preferred business model, is to develop a branded institutional website, which under which we have a license arrangement with a customer, and students don't have to pay, because hopefully we've been able to reach commercial terms with the university or the school or the polytechnic who is looking after the payment for the student. So I guess there's two ways of answering that question. Thank you for it. An example of work we are doing in Indonesia at the moment is with a new company in Indonesia, which is focusing upon improving the employability of students in the hospitality industry, the hotels industry, not just in Indonesia, but across the ASEAN region. This company is called Ajar Co.id. Is their website, and our product is currently being utilized to support students who initially are entering the Middle East cruise ship industry. That's the first customer that we have. It's called the Pacific Marine Training College in Yogyakarta, who is utilizing this platform. Our courseware has been completely translated and adapted for the Indonesian hospitality market. And so I would like to just play a video yang dalam bahasa Indonesia about the overview of successful graduate training that's being utilized in Indonesia.
Di era sekarang, mendapatkan pekerjaan sangatlah penting sehingga bisa memperoleh kehidupan layak sesuai taraf hidup yang diharapkan. Pekerjaan juga dilihat sebagai status sosial individu. Nah, salah satu tahapan dalam mendapatkan pekerjaan adalah mengajukan lamaran kerja ke perusahaan yang dituju. Tiap perusahaan tentu ingin merekrut pekerja yang berkualitas. Maka dari itu, kamu harus memastikan bahwa dirimu layak untuk dipilih di antara pelamar kerja lainnya. Dalam video ini, kamu akan mempelajari elemen-elemen apa saja yang harus dipersiapkan sebelum melamar kerja, mulai dari membuat resume yang menarik, hingga tips berinteraksi dengan orang lain dan memperluas relasi. Dalam modul ini, kamu akan belajar tentang 1. Elemen-elemen persiapan kerja yang dirancang oleh pakar-pakar industri, di antaranya surat lamaran atau kurikulum vitae, menentukan kriteria pilihan kerja, profil media sosial, networking, negosiasi tawaran pekerjaan kamu dan hari pertama kamu di tempat kerja. 2. Modul langkah-langkah pelatihan yang komprehensif. Setiap modul nantinya akan berbentuk teoritis dan juga praktis. Pada setiap akhir modul, kamu akan diminta untuk melengkapi kuis mengenai ringkasan di setiap modulnya. 3. Persepsi, nilai-nilai, dan juga sifat yang dimiliki diri sendiri. Dalam poin ini, kamu akan memahami siapa diri kamu, termasuk spesifik skill dan general skill di lingkungan kerja, nilai kepribadian yang dimiliki, rasa percaya diri dan ketekunan, pengalaman berorganisasi. Poin-poin tersebut bisa langsung kamu cantumkan ke dalam surat lamaran kamu. 4. Cantumkan sertifikat kursus dari Ajar dan juga Successful Graduate. Alangkah baiknya untuk menyertakan sertifikat tersebut ke dalam surat lamaran atau resume kamu. Jika perlu, unggah pula sertifikat tersebut ke profil LinkedIn kamu. 5. Cantumkan sumber lain selain beberapa hal yang telah disebutkan sebelumnya. Sumber lain yang dapat kamu cantumkan ke dalam surat lamaran diantaranya fitur artikel dan podcast khusus anggota, buletin berkala tentang isu terkini dan tips terbaru berisi topik yang berkaitan dengan kamu, kursus tambahan untuk mengasah kemampuan kerja kamu. Sudah siap mendapatkan pekerjaan impianmu? Let's get started!
Let's get started. Love it. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that that is an example of how we are prepared as a company to work with other integrators in other markets. And I'm very open to working with existing online providers of material in the Indonesian market. Indeed, we've had our product put onto a variety of different platforms. I want to speak briefly about a contract that we've held with Jobstreet, but not in Indonesia yet, focused upon the Malaysian market initially. And I do understand that Jobstreet is one of, if not the largest online platforms for students finding work in the Indonesian market. So here's an example of how we have worked with Jobstreet in the past. And our hope is that we would be able to continue this style of relationship in the Indonesian market as well. Again, from the Malaysian market perspective, another example of how we have signed a contract with an organization which hosts online training for different customers. This is an Australian company which is listed on the Australian stock market called Open Learning. It's becoming one of Australia's most dominant online training platforms. And indeed, we've worked with online training with Open Learning to have our products delivered into initially the Malaysian market. And so we've had some successes during the pandemic in approaching education providers and government agencies in Malaysia, which have an interest in seeing the youth of Malaysia improving their job application skills. And so that relationship with Open Learning will only continue to grow as well. So we're nearing, I suppose, the end of the chalk and talk. And I encourage you, if you do have questions or comments that you'd like to make, to prepare them now and to put them into the Q&A chat. And we may have an opportunity to address some of those. Suffice to say that our platform and our series of courses have been designed to support improve student outcome ultimately. And so our objective is to help hundreds of thousands of students each year to improve their employability. To do that, our approach is to work on a B2B basis with education providers, government agencies, education agencies, and online platform providers to address some of the employability needs across the student life cycle, starting from high school all the way through to an alumnus. And in fact, I'm giving a presentation next week to one of the university's alumni groups here in Brisbane. Griffith University has started doing webinar series, and I've been amazed. Within 24 hours of the invitation going out to alumni, we've had hundreds and hundreds of former students who are tuning in to a webinar that I'll be delivering around dealing with job loss and redundancy, another course that we have. Fascinating to see. And some of these are employers who are in the unfortunate position of having to work out how to let staff go because of the impact of the pandemic, and to work out how they can be supporting those staff with reskilling and understanding how they can deal with job loss and redundancy. And we've in fact been delivering that program to staff of the University of Queensland over the last couple of months. So a final question that came through today, the burning question, how much is it? And I can answer that in so many different ways, because I know that we're dealing with a different scale and a different potential student load in the Indonesian market, because we have a variety of different courses and they don't all cost the same, and because it really will depend upon what kind of work would be involved in transferring that material, whether it needs to be delivered in Bahasa Indonesia or Bahasa Inggris, etc. But for the BINUS Career Centre, the answer is, on average, most of our courses take between 10 and 20 hours for a student to complete. And we enter into a sliding scale license fee arrangement per student per course. By default, students have access to our training courses for 12 months, but that can be by arrangement as well. The prices you see here are straight out of a proposal that we sent to an Australian university this week. And I'm trying to be consistent here. So in Australian dollars, you can see how our prices drop per student based upon student numbers. I would rather sit down with an education provider in Indonesia, find out what your goals and objectives are, and probably come up with a more bespoke arrangement for you. But I don't think it's fair for me to take an hour of your time without talking to you about the commercial aspects to how we engage with education providers in this market. So do imagine how online and scalable employability training could impact the value proposition of your institution. We've seen a lot more education providers utilising the fact that they have successful graduate training in place as part of their pitch to actually enrol students in the first place. Students are shopping around looking for employability outcome. So with that, I would simply like to mention that I'm available at any time to talk to you one-on-one. In fact, a number of you, there are so many of you which have sent pages and pages of questions to us, and we'd like to get back to you each individually if we can. Plus, I understand Trade and Investment Queensland will be sending out a follow-up message to all audience participants, along with a recording of this program. So now I think we have a little bit of time just simply to be able to handle any further questions or answers that might be there. I'm looking at the participant numbers and we've kept everybody. So I'm very, very grateful to you for staying engaged. I appreciate that. Thank you. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih, Gordon, for the very interesting presentation. It's very relevant skills, the 21st century skills that what the Indonesian students are needing at the moment, and you pointed it out right. And we have one question sitting at the Q&A box at the moment. I think you answered part of it. I'll just read it out to you. Gary is a student and just graduated from bachelor's degree in management economics, and he's asking, are all of the programs only applied for high school graduates, or are there any programs like internship or training or job in Queensland for a bachelor's degree graduate?
Yeah. So the majority of our training courses have been delivered or developed to support higher education students, whether they are vocational or university students. The one difference is the high school graduate course, but most of the other courses are actually for university and polytechnic students. And I'm sorry, Irma, what was the other half of that question? Something about Queensland?
Are there any programs like internship or training jobs in Queensland for bachelor's degree graduates? I think you touched on this a little bit earlier on that company that provides.
That's right, on a commercial basis. And look, I'm not an expert in this, and this is not part of my business, but having worked in the industry before, I understand that on a commercial basis and subject to the appropriate visas being able to be obtained, yes, there are internship opportunities in Australia and in Queensland. And I would refer your inquiry to some of those internship providers, including, and here is the website for the organisation that we've partnered with here. It's called Australian Internships, and the website is internships.com.au. So there's a free plug for our business partner, Internships Australia, Australian Internships. They happen to also be headquartered in Queensland.
Thank you, Gordon. So that's the website, yeah?
Yeah. Now there are, gosh, I might get in trouble here. There are other providers of internships in Australia as well. This is just one example. So what is going to be the process now for Followup, Irma? And when can people anticipate they may receive their email from you?
Okay, Tristan, my colleague from Study Queensland, is working very diligently with me on this Queensland Hour webinar series. So what happened after the webinar, we'll send out an email. In that email included a quick survey for the participants who are attending today and also who registered, to quickly help us to fill those in for us to be able to improve our sessions in the future. And in that email will be included my contact details as well, where I could be contacted. If any of the participants attending today who have any further questions, burning question for Gordon, and would like to be connected with Gordon in the future, please feel free to contact me in that details. And a slide will be put up before you log off today. So with my contact details as well, just in case you missed the email. And if you have any question or follow up with Gordon. And we might be able to include some of the answers from the earlier questions that the participant asked during the registration, yeah, Gordon?
Yeah, and I'd be very happy to, I'll make the slides that I presented today available, of course, to be issued. I really am very serious about doing business with partners in Indonesia, and so I welcome your inquiry. My contact details are there, and of course we'll share them afterwards. But if you would like to talk on a Zoom meeting about how we can support you and what some of the ideas might be about even working on a pilot basis within your institution, then I really encourage that, and I'm available to be able to have that discussion whenever you need.
Thank you, Gordon. And I forgot to mention earlier in that email that we will be sending out to the participants soon, the recording of the presentation will be included as it will be uploaded into TIQ's YouTube channel soon. and also the materials for today. So in case any of the participants who can't attend today, they'll be able to see the materials. And anxious of the time, we have exceeded the time allowed. So I would like to thank you on behalf of TIQ Indonesia, Gordon. I would like to thank you so much for being our speaker today, and also for our participants who are attending and staying with us until the end. We really appreciate it. And for the patience, and thank you for the great questions, for the live ones and the pre-registration ones. I'm glad that we answered them all, the live ones. And for those few of the questions that Gordon will be sending, that we will be sending later. So you should be able to receive that soon. And sorry?
Terima kasih kembali.
Terima kasih banyak. So I hope to see you again in the next Queensland Hour. Selamat sore. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm closing the session now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye.